In fairness, you could take tonight for granted because it's Astana and yes, it's a long trip, but Chelsea, they're on a roll. But Man United did that same thing a few years ago and lost to a better Astana. But nonetheless, you can take the young team and it be a slip-up. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. They handled it really professionally. And they are in this kind of Goldilocks position, Chelsea, where that wasn't even really their Conference League team. It was the Conference League team had, with some of the players taken
being
out.
rested.
They rested the Conference League team. And Renato Veda, who's, to be fair, been sort of around everything, Renato Veda. There's obviously he's a player that Maresca seems to really like, to feel he can call on in lots of different situations. It was professional. Those are difficult conditions. I mean, Pedro Neto was right. It did look very cold. It's a long, long way away. I think the distance from there to here is wider than the United States.
Yes.
That's a long journey.
Yeah. And they'll be back.
They'll be back
not yet.
Soon enough. Not quite yet. Not far off. Maybe by the time we're off air.
Yeah.
But
they kicked off 2 days ago. So.
But it was
obviously mid-afternoon.
It's a difficult trip, and they handled it professionally. And they are kind of just working their way through this competition. They're doing what they have to do.
How patient can a player be? What about someone like Dewsbury-Hall? He talked about wanting to win this competition, but he's waiting a long time to get moments and games.
Character building was the performance from the young team, getting a win in those conditions. But I like Dewsbury-Hall. I think he's one of these guys where you know he's a good player. Maresca obviously trusts him. He paid a lot of money for him, close to sort of 35 million. But I think he's one of these guys where his attitude is really good. He doesn't mind being patient. He's one of them where he probably knows in the heart of hearts when he made the move, he thought he was going to be close to starting a lot of games, but the former Lavia and Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, they're obviously ahead of him. But it'll be one of them when Maresca needs him, it's all about having the attitude to be ready and not to sulk. And he showed that tonight with his performance. This one was just trying to do a little bit too much because he was so good. But what impressed me tonight, when he started the game, he was at it. His character was good. And that will stand him in good stead. I think if anyone goes out of form, because we were saying, weren't we, 2 or 3 games into this competition, there's 2 different sides. And the side that plays on a Thursday night, you know they're not going to play at the weekend. Well, João Felix has started to make some appearances in the Premier League. So he's forced his way into the Chelsea side because of this competition. The next one, I think, will be Dewsbury-Hall, because his attitude's good. We were saying, weren't we, 2 or 3 games into this competition, there's 2 different sides. And the side that plays on a Thursday night, you know they're not going to play at the weekend. Well, João Felix has started to make some appearances in the Premier League. So he's forced his way into the Chelsea side because of this competition. The next one, I think, will be Dewsbury-Hall, because his attitude's good. 6 wins on the spin, which equals a record that Thomas Tuchel's side set a couple of years ago. Ironically enough, that run ended with a 4-1 defeat to Brentford. Who did Chelsea play on Sunday? Brentford.
The crucial difference being, where do they play Brentford?
At the Bridge.
At Stamford Bridge. And Brentford's away record, not great at the moment.
Not as good as their home record.
No.
Chelsea are in a great moment. They are flying, and they've got a really deep squad. I think probably the deepest squad in the league because of all that recruitment. He's got this situation where he can use the Conference League to keep players fresh and interested. And I think we've actually seen a little bit more movement than Don mentioned between the teams. Sancho got his place back, having impressed against Heidenheim. Neto's played in the Conference League and then kind of become a part of the Premier League team. He can keep everybody happy, he can keep everyone fresh, he can keep everyone fit, and it'll only be really in the latter stages of the Conference League that he might have to consider playing slightly stronger sides, because Chelsea are so much better than everybody else.
I would love to ask Maresca, because I worked on their pre-season games in America in the summer, and they were awful. Celtic were beating them, Liverpool beat them, City beat them, but the standard of defeats that they had were terrible, and I thought they're going to be way off it. I'd love to know what he's tweaked from pre-season up until now, because now they're a completely different side.
It's
fascinating. They were awful.
There's a few have tried, and it was a chaotic club, wasn't it? And yet somehow synergy has been created.
He's been ruthless in terms of saying, we need a smaller squad, we've got all these players, I don't need all of them. So you've still got, obviously Sterling goes, Ben Chilwell is just out in the cold, not the Astana cold. I wonder to what extent Dewsbury-Hall, who was, even by Chelsea standards, a bit of a strange signing in the summer, I wonder if he's been brought in partly because he knows the methods, he knows the system, he's obviously a good character, he's good to have around. He's not the manager's eyes and ears in a sort of spying sense, but he's someone who can go in and say, this is how this works, I understand this, and you've got kind of someone to help guide the other players through it. But whatever Maresca's done, he's done it brilliantly.
It's working, although Chelsea isn't Leicester, as they say.
Freezing environment, winning 3-1 with basically most of their youth team players. That shows the deepness of that squad. Most of their these players didn't even travel. The likes of Joao Felix and Nkunku didn't travel, and they started with 3 U-team players and then subbed on 4 U-team players, and by the end of the game they had about 6 or 7 U-team players out of the 11 players in the pitch. It's crazy, man, it's crazy. And to do that and still walk away with 3-1 in a sub-20 temperature out there, wow, it's crazy, man, it's crazy. And these guys, what a valuable experience for the young kids, playing in a difficult environment after 8 hours flight and still walk away with a victory. It's crazy, man. I mean, you have to give it to Chelsea. The mentality is growing every damn game. The mentality of the teams, the players are growing every time. They are climbing over insurmountable obstacles, to keep winning, and they are still winning. If you look at their stats this season, they have only been beaten twice. The first was their first defeat was against Man City, first game of the season, and Maresca made a lot of changes after that game, to the playing squad. If you remember, Nkunku started that game and he never started again until last weekend against Southampton, away. And then also, you look at the second defeat was against Liverpool at Anfield, and Arne Slot, just said that game was the only game of the season that he felt the opponent was better than Liverpool on the day, and that happened at Anfield. If you look at football, at times if you concentrate solely on results, you will miss the big deal, and the big deal is the performance. The performance is what tells you what's going to happen tomorrow, next year, next 2 years, stuff like that. Performance is, if the performance keep climbing, then you're heading somewhere, even if the results are not there. Definitely, performance enhances results. Once the performance keeps getting better, the result will surely arrive, and that's what we are seeing today. Most people wrote it off, like, they don't have a backbone, they don't win big games. Now they went to Southampton last weekend on Sunday. Considered 2 early goals away from home. Sorry, Tottenham, and considered 2 goals away from home, and then came back to win 4-3. Should have been 4-2. Moment of indecision and lapses, caused them a goal to a minute plus, before the end of the game, and it could have easily been 4 goals to 2. Coming back away from home in a hostile atmosphere. The crowd didn't even let Cole Palmer take corner kicks without throwing bottles at him. That's just a tip of the iceberg. And for Spurs, a whole Spurs to concede, to have a 2-goal head start and still lose in that manner, that's crazy.